Thank you for joining the Zachrilege cast, Sally Hunt. How are you doing this evening?
Hi, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. I have a few, usually it's like out of context quotes, but in this case, they're pretty in context quotes that I'm going to put out before we get the show started. Actually, a couple of them aren't yours, but the rest are. But I think they're appropriate at this time. And if they don't make sense to the audience, they will by the time we finish talking. Men are afraid that women will laugh at them. Women are afraid that men are going to kill them. Who said that?
Yeah. Margaret Atwood said that quote.
Okay.
hmm
In this movement, you have a choice between being a personality and a leader. That's, I'd much rather be gay than be so desperately afraid of God that I couldn't make a cake for a fellow human. And I feel like this is the best one. There's no mention of microwaves in the Constitution.
Oops. Yeah.
That was the best. But we'll just let that one simmer for those who haven't checked out. And if you haven't, what's up with you? Anyway, that's why you're here tonight. So let's start at the. I don't know if this is the beginning of your kind of activist journey, but what is Thrive and what is Best Choice?
Yes. Thrive, best choice. Oh gosh, where to begin? Um, so Thrive is a local crisis pregnancy center in the St. Louis area, St. Louis, Missouri. And so for anyone who's not familiar with what a crisis pregnancy center is, they're a fake clinic. They pose as like a women's healthcare center that offers abortion services like Planned Parenthood. The entire purpose is to trick pregnant women who might be considering an abortion into coming in, and so the goal is to get these women in there, thinking that it's a medical facility. And then once they're in there, the whole purpose is to give them false information, scare tactics about abortion. They use religion to guilt and shame the woman. They coerce the woman into an ultrasound, and the entire purpose is uh, to make sure that the woman will never consider an abortion as a choice. It's run by Christian fundamentalists, right wing, anti choice people. So, anyway, that's what Thrive is, a crisis pregnancy center. But the thing is that they're also in public schools teaching abstinence only, sex ed, I put in quotes, fake sex ed propaganda, abstinence only until marriage. And this is a nationwide problem, but there are different organizations just like Thrive, different Christian fundamentalist organizations. But here in St. Louis, it is Thrive Best Choice is the name of the abstinence only program in public schools, teaching kids, this Christian fundamentalist morality perspective about that you are dirty if you have sex before marriage, that you're gross, that that you're almost guaranteed to get a sexually transmitted infection. No emphasis on the effectiveness and importance of using condoms and birth control. And it's all about scare tactics, irrational fear about sex and sexuality, creating shame about your kids' normal, healthy sexual desires, sexuality. It's all very heteronormative. Being gay is not discussed. Being LGBT, being bi, being transgender, it's all very based on stereotypical gender roles as well about boys and girls. Um, and it's very harmful. It's not medically accurate at all. So I've been doing a lot of activism since I found out that they were in public schools, to expose them and get them out. And we have been successful getting them removed from some public schools, not all.
But when you first reached
Go
out,
ahead.
didn't you have to actually get their curriculum? Like it wasn't actually available?
Right, right. And so that's the thing. It's really easy to expose them because um, they try to hide from the public. They try to hide their curriculum from the public. And so when I first reached out and I found out that they were in 20 public school districts, I just started by asking to see the curriculum. I said, I just want to see what you're teaching these kids. And it turned out that no public school district had their curriculum available. No, no public school district administrators or board members, none of them had ever actually seen the complete curriculum. They were all just taking Thrive, this Christian fundamentalist organization, they were all just taking Thrive at their word when Thrive said that it was a 100% medically accurate um, curriculum. So they were just assuming that it was that they were telling the truth, and none of them had ever actually seen it. And so all they had was like very basic outlines with a few sources, and I did see that the sources, like citations, were like Christian morality books, opinion books, like not any type of scientific source. I found that interesting. And so I was just saying, I would like to see the actual curriculum that you're teaching these kids. No school had it. And so then I reached out to Thrive, and they were giving me the runaround, and they were not responding. And then finally I emailed the Thrive president, and I CC'd the superintendent of the school district. So she finally responded, and she said, "Oh, sure, you can look at the curriculum. We just need to set up a mutually agreed upon time to do that, but you will not be allowed to make any copies." She said, "You will not be allowed to take any pictures of the curriculum," like super protective of it. And her reason for that was that it was copyrighted, and she acted as though copyrighted means secret, which of course, I mean, we make copies of school textbooks all the time. And so in public schools, it does not matter. We're allowed to make copies. Like copyrighted, of course, just means like I can't copy the entire thing and then teach it myself. I can't profit off of it. But to make a few copies, like it obviously would be fine. But anyway, so she said that, but she said, in the email, let's set up a mutually agreed upon time, and that would be fine. And then I responded to that email right away, and I said, okay, let's set it up. I'm available this day, that day, this time, that time. And then she never responded. and and then when I called, they have caller ID, and they just stopped answering my calls. And so it was just ridiculous. And then so the very first district ended up dropping the Thrive Best Choice program because of a lack of transparency. That was the reason that they gave. And then finally, so Thrive was forced to make their curriculum available to the other districts. So they ultimately did that. But they said, at these districts, the only way you can see it is to set up an appointment with an administrator. They must stay with you the whole time. And again, you cannot make any copies. You cannot take any pictures. So anyway, but they finally did release it, and we finally got our hands on it, and we were able to be sneaky. We did get pictures of it, and I posted the curriculum online, and we were able to see how horrible it was. And it was just there were tons of medical inaccuracies. And like I said, like there were, it was just awful. It was all about shame and equating premarital sex with being dirty and getting STIs and just like yucky. They had like 30 something slides of pictures of like gross looking sexually transmitted diseases and infections. And they were telling kids that the rhythm method or the natural family planning method was the most effective form of birth control. Like, even they were saying that even more so than like actual birth control method. And you know, the thing is, like, their entire agenda is Christian fundamentalist morality beliefs. And therefore, they believe that sex is only about procreation within a marriage. And so they never will tell kids that it's okay to use condoms or birth control at all. And so when I saw that slide where they said that the natural family planning method, you know, like when you figure out your cycle and like when you're ovulating and you just don't have sex on those days, like that's what they're talking about. And it's just awful and harmful, you know, to tell kids this, of course, because not only would they still be able to get STIs because they're not even using condoms in that situation. Kids, young girls are not, their cycles aren't even regular anyway. They can't figure out when they're ovulating to skip those days. And sperm can live within your body for up to 72 hours. But so the citation for that they gave was the Archdiocese about, you know, that the natural family planning method is the most of birth. So it was, and we have been asking who wrote this curriculum, and they have never told us. I don't know if you're there. I just see your picture right now.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a lag. So you're located in St. Louis, Missouri, is that right?
Yes.
Do you know if in your state, if schools are actually required to have accurate sex ed? Because I know I think I've heard only 13 states in our country do.
Yeah, right. No, we are definitely not required. It's to have medically accurate sex ed, which is crazy. They're allowed to tell kids inaccurate information. And that's what this Thrive Best Choice is all about. Yeah, the laws are not good. I mean, the laws really need to be better. Ideally, we would have federal laws about this, but yeah, the laws are just awful.
Well, you kind of already mentioned it, but what was what has been your success in this? How many school districts had this program, and how many have dropped it?
Yeah, originally it was 20 public school districts that had this terrible program, and now it's four school districts that are remaining.
Well, I call it a victory, and I'm happy to have people on the last couple of weeks where it's like, here's examples of people protesting and being activists, and it's actually working.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's just about getting the word out and educating people, raising awareness, and I mean, once we spread the word, you know, about it and what they were teaching, people were shocked because people just had no idea that they were in public schools. And so once people knew, a lot of people were speaking up and they were contacting the school board members and the administrators and attending school board meetings. And then we started getting media attention and getting in the news, and that helped a lot as well. So, yeah, I was very pleased this group worked.
Well, let's transition to I guess, a town close to you. How did you find out about the "In God We Trust," I guess, banner? I don't even know if banner is accurate because it's a lot more in the banner.
Display.
How did you get involved? And I'll probably have to share a picture at some point because it's giant. "In God We Trust." It's actually bigger than I think the city name.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, in Wentzville, Missouri, is what you're talking about. Yeah, they have this enormous "In God We Trust" display in their new city hall. City hall was built in November. And so because of my sex ed activism, a lot of people got to know me locally, as this separation of church and state activist. And a lot of people knew that I was an atheist and am outspoken about it. I'm public with it, and I'm not afraid to public for the separation of church and state. Whereas a lot of other people, they are afraid to publicly do that sort of activism and to publicly state that they are atheists, which I understand a lot of backlash, and discrimination. But so I thought about it because someone who lives in this town who knew me and knew that I would be pissed off and that I would speak up about it, against it. Someone sent me a picture of that new city hall and the new enormous "In God We Trust" display. And so I attended one of their Board of Aldermen meetings back in, when did I guess February is the first one. And, I signed up ahead of time to speak. And the mayor knew who I was because I had already posted about it on Facebook, and it already got some media attention from that post and everything. And I had tagged the mayor, and he commented, and then he blocked me like immediately. And so anyway, I signed up to speak. He knew that I was not a Wentzville resident. I live about 20 minutes away from there, 20 to 30 minutes away. But that doesn't matter because Wentzville rules allow anyone to speak. So I have the same free speech rights as anyone else who would speak at a Wentzville City Hall, a Board of Aldermen meeting. But do you want me to just to talk about what happened that first day?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I got up to speak. They, like I said, they knew that I wasn't a resident of Wentzville. It didn't matter. They knew that I was going to speak about this topic. I got up to speak, and I calmly spoke, respectfully. I just talked about how this display does not represent all people in Wentzville, and that there are all sorts of religious beliefs and non-belief in Wentzville, and people all over, and their job is in the government to represent everyone. Spoken with contacted Wentzville residents who don't believe in a God, and who were upset about this display in City Hall. And because they were afraid to speak up publicly for fear of hostility and resentment, and backlash and discrimination. And I talked about, when I spoke, I talked about how that display that says "In God We Trust" contributes to that sort of an environment, an intimidating environment where we atheists are discriminated against. And so anyway, I discussed that. And then when the mayor cut me off and he said, your 5 minutes is up. And my 5 minutes it turns out, was not actually up. He interrupted me early. He cut me off at 4 minutes and 35 seconds, and he said, "Your 5 minutes is up." And then, and I was ready to just go sit down at that point. But then he basically was accusing me of lying. So he responds and he says, "Well, you mentioned people in Wentzville who are opposed to this display. However, none of them are here tonight, so let it be known that, that's just hearsay. That's just hearsay because people in Wentzville are never afraid to let me know when they're opposed to something or when something." They were said, are you calling me a liar?" And I said, because actually I just told you why those people aren't here tonight. It's because of the fear of discrimination and backlash against them. And then he said, "Well, no, but it's just hearsay that those people exist because they're not here tonight." And I said, "But again, I've explained to you why they're not actually here." And then he said, "I'm going to have you taken out of this meeting. I'm going to have you kicked out." And I went to go sit back down. And then, sure enough, he had 2 police officers come and pull me out of the meeting at that point. And I am now suing the city of Wentzville. The ACLU contacted me and wanted to file a lawsuit on my behalf because it was very clearly a violation of my free speech. It was obviously viewpoint-based discrimination, especially because after I spoke on video, you can see there the next woman who spoke, 2 people after me, she actually got extra time to speak. She got up there and first she spoke against me and in support of the "In God We Trust" display. And after she did that, after she spoke against me and in support of "In God We Trust," then she was given her full 5 minutes. So she was probably given a whole extra 2 minutes, just to speak in support of the "In God We Trust" display. So she got extra time, whereas I got cut off early and then kicked out by police officers.
That's just crazy that they brought in the police to deal with the unruly atheist, of course, because that's what we are.
Yeah, exactly. It's hilarious because you can watch the video and see that I was perfectly calm and I was not screaming or cussing or like anything like that. And it's on my YouTube channel, Sally Hunt, or even if you just like go on YouTube and you type Sally Hunt Wentzville, I think is how you can go as well. Also, just really funny because the mayor by cops proved when I was talking about how the hostility and discrimination and backlash against us. I mean, he definitely proved me exactly right when I said that, and he proved the fears of those Wentzville residents that are atheists that I talked about who were afraid to speak up publicly. I mean, he validated their fears by having me kicked out by cops because I dared to publicly state that I'm an atheist.
Yeah, let's give you an opportunity to answer a question you didn't get to answer totally on Fox News. Why, in your opinion, is "In God We Trust" a specifically Christian statement?
Yeah. So it's definitely about Christianity for several reasons. First of all, I didn't mention this in my Fox News interview, but I do think it's important to think about who writes our laws, who are our legislators, who are the people who put up these displays of "In God We Trust." It's always Christians. of one denomination or another. I mean, you know, they might be Catholic, they might be Protestant, they might be Baptist, but those are all Christians. They all believe in Jesus. Um, so that's important to just keep in mind, that the overwhelming majority of our legislators are Christian, and they're the ones that are wanting these displays of "In God We Trust," and that started the motto of "In God We Trust" in the very first place. So there's that. But what I talked about on Fox News that you're asking me about, I discussed how it's definitely Christianity, because if you go through each religion, it does not apply. So for the Jewish religion, Jews are not actually allowed to write out the word God, God, in their religion. Whenever they write the word God, they write like G-D or just GD. So God, "In God We Trust," that display would never be for the Jewish religion. It does not apply to them, obviously. For Islam, you know, Muslims, of course, and I didn't get to say this part in the Fox News interview, which I was annoyed with myself that I didn't say this about Muslims as well. But Muslims call their God Allah. So if the display were for Muslims, it would say "In Allah We Trust." So obviously it doesn't apply to them. And then for Hindus, Hindus have told me that their display would say in all gods we trust, or "In many gods we trust," because they believe in more than one God. They believe in gods, so it would say in all gods we trust for them. And really, so Buddhists, they don't believe in a personal God. Like a lot of Buddhists might have kind of a deist God that they believe in, but they wouldn't say that they trust in a God. That's not part of Buddhism. You know, so I mean, it's just like you go one by one. It's just abundantly clear that it's Christians. It's about Christianity. I mean, then of course, obviously, then there are lots of atheists, you know, agnostics, secular people who obviously would never say "In God We Trust." It's definitely a statement that is endorsing Christianity. But really, the bottom line is, even if somebody wants to make the argument that they don't think it's about Christianity, and they say, well, you know, it's about anybody can believe in a God. It does. You don't have to be Christian. Even if you want to say that, it definitely does not apply to everyone, because atheists exist. So there's no evidence that a God exists, but there is evidence that atheists exist. We exist, and we are also Americans. And the government represents us equal. We're supposed to have equal representation, equal justice. So we're being left out. We are being discriminated against. The government is promoting a preference for people who not only believe in a God, but say that they trust in a God. And its government represents everybody, all people. So it's not acceptable. Aside from the fact that it's unconstitutional, but it's also just wrong and it's unjust.
Well, there are no microwaves in the Constitution, as we found out. So how do you go from, you know, you talk about sex ed and you get some notoriety for that, and then you get kicked out of I guess, a city council meeting in Wentzville. How do you end up on Laura Ingraham's show on Fox News? Like, how does that get conveyed to you? And then do you just instantly go, of course I'm going to be on Fox News?
Yeah, so that happened after the next meeting in Wentzville. So it was the fall. So that meeting that I just described, where I was taken out by cops, what happened was after that, it was on the news, so got some media attention, and then I was posting about it and how I'm going to go to the next meeting, and I was talking to other atheists who wanted to come with me and speak. And so, but once it was in the news, then a lot of right-wing fundamentalist Christian theocratic types, they heard about it and they all wanted to show up. And so the following meeting at the Wentzville Board of Aldermen meeting was a shit show. It was huge. There were a lot of people that showed up who were the Christian theocratic types, fascist types, you could also call them, dominionists as well. So tons of those individuals showed up. They were holding signs that said, "We support In God We Trust." And it was funny because like they were standing out front of City Hall before the meeting, and I was talking to a lot of them, and I did a Facebook Live video where I was talking to them, and it's really interesting and amusing to see, and depressing. Depressing to see how a lot of these people think. But so there were just a lot of these people, and so it was, and then the media was there covering it, and a lot of those individuals got up and spoke. And of course they were very overt with talking about Christianity, talking about the Bible. No doubt about it that the motto is about Christianity. But I was gonna say, when I saw all these people with the signs standing outside, it was funny when I talked to them, because when I would see them holding a sign that said, "We support In God We Trust," like I would always be sure to say to them, and that is fine. That is your personal choice, your personal opinion. You're right. You support In God We Trust, but this isn't about your personal opinion. This is about the government. They don't understand the difference between the government and an individual person. But anyway, so that was that meeting, really, really big, lots of those individuals speaking. And then there were several of us atheists, and advocates for the separation of church and state who spoke as well. But there were definitely more of them. I'm not going to lie. There were a lot of them that spoke. And so then what happened was, then that meeting got covered in the media, and it was on the front page of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. And then it started getting picked up by national news outlets about that Wentzville meeting, and about all of us speaking for and against the display. And it got picked up first by the Fox News website, and as well as other national news media websites. And then after that, that day I guess it was the day after that Wentzville meeting, then I got a call from Laura Ingram's show, The Ingraham Angle, that they wanted to. And yeah, it was just, it was bizarre. I got this phone call out of the blue that they wanted to interview me. And, definitely there was no hesitation. Fox News is awful. They're evil. They're horrible. But I'm more than happy to go anywhere to talk about the importance of the separation of church and state, and to talk about what it means to be an atheist. We have to normalize atheism. We have to emphasize the importance of this issue. Because if we don't do it, who's going to? We should. And so that, I just want to put that out there, because I had some people criticize me for going on Fox News, and I said, I'll talk about this anywhere. I don't care. I think we have to get this message out there. We have to do whatever we can. But anyway, it was interesting, because I also didn't know that they were going to have on Missouri State Senator Bob Onder at the same time as me, I knew who he was, super right-wing, Christian, conservative, theocrat. And they didn't tell me that he was going to be there as well. Fine. But I thought it was just going to be Laura Ingraham interviewing me, which would have been more, fair. It would have been fair because he agrees with her on everything. So it was 2-1. And it felt like they just had him there to take away time from me and my answers. So it was just less time for me to talk about what I was there to talk about, but it's fine. He was her yes man.
Well, did you have a specific kind of strategy? Because you definitely were fearless and you definitely were prepared. It's like you almost saw the game plan of the opposition because you were able to respond to everything Ingraham threw out. Not that she really threw out anything too difficult, but what was it? I guess
I really that.
I had to prepare. Sorry, there's a delay. I know.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't hear the last thing you said.
I was just saying, how did you prepare for the show?
Oh yeah. I mean, at that point, I had been talking about this issue so much, thinking about this issue so much, that I think at that point I had already prepared a lot of talking points about why the display of "In God We Trust" in government is unconstitutional. So I had done my research about the Constitution and about Supreme Court cases. So that was a lot of it was just going back over. I mean, I had already been doing that, studying that stuff because I had been wanting, to be prepared prior to the Wentzville meeting when I was going to be talking about this, and just if anybody asked me about it, and I had been engaging in Facebook debates about it a lot as well. But so there was that. I definitely reviewed, the Constitution and the First Amendment, and then Supreme Court cases about the First Amendment Establishment Clause and applying it. And so that's why, like you saw in that Fox News interview, I mentioned the lemon test. I think that's huge. For me, that should end the debate right there, because there is just, it doesn't make any sense because of the lemon test. I mean, a government action cannot happen unless it is secular in nature. Like it has to have a secular purpose. And I don't understand how anyone can even pretend to make the argument that saying "In God We Trust" could be secular. It's just a lie. But anyway, I just reviewed that stuff, and I just went back over my arguments about why it's abundantly clear that "In God We Trust" is Christian, and why it's a violation of the First Amendment Establishment Clause of the Constitution, and so I was focused on that stuff.
Now, you didn't seem to have any fear talking about Thrive or going to Wentzville or even being on Fox News, but what was it like after you were done and getting the threats and the hate that you got as a result of being a public atheist?
Yeah, I mean it was definitely, I didn't expect it to be as bad as it was, but I also have seen the viciousness and the hatred before. But I will say it's on a whole other level when you're on Fox News. I mean, and obviously those individuals, those hateful right wing Christian theocratic types, that's obviously what they're watching. They're watching Laura Ingraham. They're watching Fox News. And the second, I swear, it's the second that show ended, my interview on Laura Ingram's show, the second it ended, my phone was like buzz, 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 like notification, notification. And it was my Twitter. And I just really quickly, I glanced at a couple of them, and it was like, you know, you're ugly, like your voice is, you know, it was like, you know, you just vicious, misogynistic, ad hominem attacks about my physical appearance, about my voice, just, you know. And the thing is, it's they they can't, they have really nothing to debate me about the issues. It was not because because I know they know that we are in the right. Like we that this the Constitution, the separation of church and state is abundantly clear. So they didn't, those tweets, those hateful tweets were not trying to argue the actual substance of the points that I made on the show. It was just trying to take me down and insult my looks and my voice and my nose, you know. And it's like, you know, that's the thing, is that I'm secure in myself, and secure to put yourself out there as an atheist, because they will try to rip you to shreds, especially as a woman. I mean, to me, that stuff just exposes them. It exposes their biases, their fears. It's sad, but it says a lot about them, and the fact that they try to derail the conversation and distract from the issues, and they try to make it about me. Um, that's all they have, because they can't debate the substance of the issues. They can't debate me on the solid points that I made, because they will lose the debate. And they know it. They just think that their Christianity is superior, and they want the government to promote that. And that's all this is about. So they've got nothing, and they feel threatened, probably because they know that their beliefs are based in nothing, and that there's no evidence, you know, there's just not true. That's the thing. Like, if there really were a God and there were evidence for a God, they wouldn't have to be so vicious and so angry. Like, we would just have the evidence. But since there is none, and these people know that, and I'm sure, like, in the back of their mind, like, they know that it's not even true, or that there's a good chance it's not true, and they don't want to have to think about that, and they don't like the fact that atheists exist, because we point out how absurd these beliefs are. I mean, but at the same time, like, it's not even, that's not even the issue, because they have every right to believe what they want to believe, and I have never once said otherwise. You know, I've been abundantly clear that it's about equal rights for all, you know, people to believe in a religion, to practice a religion, but also for atheists to be atheists, and that we are not inferior, and we should never allow anyone else we should never allow the government tell us that we are inferior, that we're second class citizens. So the attacks just, I'm used to it at this point, and I definitely got a lot of attacks with my sex ed activism against Thrive, Best Choice. And they Thrive tried to do the same thing. They tried to make it about me, and so it's just what they do, because they can't win on the arguments, on the issues. So it's all they have.
Now, I mentioned this on Messenger earlier, and I'll give you the opportunity to either accept or decline. For the crowd, do you have a joke?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's a silly one. It's one that my kids used to tell on Halloween.
Okay.
Um, why couldn't the ghost see his mommy and daddy?
Why?
Because they were transparents.
Oh, nice. See, you brought the A game. You brought the great answers, and you brought the joke. I'm sorry, I've been like, oh, I need to do shorter interviews. And I'm like, we could just talk for another hour. But I'm going to have to say we're going to have you back on to kind of cover what's new. So to finish up, where can people find you kind of online to keep track of what you're doing, what's next? Because there's obviously a next.
Yeah, well, I have not been keeping up with my blog, but the best place to is on Facebook. Either I have a public page for my atheism activism, atheism separation of church and state, and it's called The Passionate Atheist. The page says The Passionate Atheist dash Sally Hunt. And it's the website is facebook.com/passionate atheist. And I'm kind of playing off of, passionate. Like I am passionate, definitely. But a lot of people will use the passionate label to dismiss me. Like, oh, I know you're passionate about this, but, and then they don't actually listen to the words I'm speaking. So anyway, that's why I call myself the Passionate Atheist. So I'm on Facebook there, but you can also find me on my personal profile, and I'm fine with that. I love connecting with other atheists and separation of church and state activists. And so my name is Sally Hunt, but on Facebook I am Sally Buxbaum Hunt, and my maiden name, which is now my middle name, is spelled Buxbaum. So you can find me Sally Buxbaum Hunt. And then I'm on Twitter at Sally B Hunt, and on Instagram Sally B Hunt as well. So you could find me at any of those places. Like, what's next? I mean, I actually am starting the PhD program in the fall for counseling. So I'll be getting my PhD in counseling and working on my LPC, licensed professional counselor, for going into private practice as a counselor as well. And I plan to do, for my research in my PhD program, research about sex education. It's definitely something that we need as much research and evidence for as possible to demonstrate how necessary quality, comprehensive sex ed is for kids. So I want to do whatever I can for that. But I definitely look forward to this program and to working as a counselor. I want to focus not only on sex ed and being a sex therapist, but also on helping survivors of rape and sexual assault. And also definitely I want to focus on helping people who are leaving religion, recovering from religion. I think that people really, really need a good qualified counselor who understands the needs of people who are coming out of a religious background and who are breaking free from that. And especially if your entire family and your entire community is religious and there's so much shame involved. So I really want to do a lot to help people with that as well.
Well, that is excellent. Everything will be linked in the show notes. And if you're watching this on YouTube and thinking, hey, where'd the intro and outro go? Well, you have to go to iTunes or Podbean or Google Play or one of those podcatchers to get the entire show. So please do that. And
oh, can I plug my YouTube? Sorry.
Sure, yeah. It'll all be included, but please do.
Okay, I was just gonna say, I can't believe I forgot to say that. My YouTube channel, youtube.com/Sally Hunt Atheist. And my name's Sally Hunt on YouTube as well. I've got some videos there. So.
Yes, you do. If you want an extended review of the Fox News appearance, you definitely need to watch that. So once again, thank you, Sally, for being on the Zachrilege cast.
Thank you.